All right, so our next guest speaker is a Christian first. He's an attorney, and he is a constitutional expert. And just visiting him offline here, it's an amazing amount of work that this man has done in our local community to educate us about really what our foundations are. And he's just a brilliant, brilliant man, and he's here to help in this region, and he's going to share some of that insight. So please give a really warm welcome to attorney Jeff Cobble.
All right, good afternoon, evening, everyone. We've had some phenomenal speakers today. I've got some personal good news for you. I think I found a candidate for governor I like. I think, well, we've had a really good army of liberty-minded people today. Listen, my time is more academic. I know that a lot of other people have told a lot of stories, they've shared a lot of personal experiences, they've been motivational. The topic that I have for today is one of the top 5 topics that I think we need to understand with regard to federal government. But can I do this before we get to federal government? I'd like us to talk about Tennessee for just a minute. There are 2 critically important things that we need to do in the state of Tennessee to put us on the right track. Now, Dave Clements has told us about elections and the black boxes, and he's exactly right. And Kathy Harms has told us about election integrity. They're correct about that. I'm not trying to minimize those, but I want to mention 2 other things. First, states need to stand against the federal government on states' rights. States' rights, I believe, fundamentally the #1 issue that we need to be dealing with in Tennessee, to let our elected officials in Tennessee, our governor, our courts, our local sheriffs, to let them know that they are not subservient to the federal government in all matters, only in federal matters. And so I urge you to educate yourself on nullification. Nullification is the concept of states standing and asserting their own rights. I think it's the #1 issue legislatively that we need to do. Secondly, this is something that you need to know about. I've heard almost no one address it. It's critical on the state level. It's procedural. There are procedures we need to fix in Tennessee. And a lot of what you heard Monty Fritz say, and if you talk to your own representatives, they will tell you in the quietness of the hour, in a back room someplace, they might be willing to admit what I'm about to tell you. Listen carefully. They are hamstrung in the Tennessee General Assembly, in the Senate and the House, by their own rules. House rules, Senate rules. And the rules govern what things go to committee and what things never come out alive. They never have to vote on those things. The rules are not used to assert the rights and liberties of the people. The rules are used to allow the corporate interest, the moneyed interest, the influencers to get their way. Tell your senators and tell your representatives that you want to see the rules. I want to see what rules you guys go by. And tell me why you have this rule. Because it gives way too much power to the Speaker of each house to decide what goes on in that house. Almost no one knows that's an issue, so I want to urge you to do something about that. Ask to see a copy of the rules. It's probably on the internet. Find them, learn the rules, and then you will see how the system is used and abused the public. Now, my topic here, birthright citizenship on the federal level, one of our top 5 issues, maybe #1. What is birthright citizenship? It's anchor babies. How many of you know what an anchor baby is? Have you heard that term? Okay, got a lot of good patriots out there? Know what anchor babies are? I want you to listen as I read you a short snippet from the Los Angeles Times that goes back 10 years. The problem's much worse now. Listen what the Los Angeles Times said 10 years ago. As of 2015, Los Angeles is considered the center of the maternity tourism industry, which caters mostly to wealthy Asian women Authorities in the city there have closed 14 maternity tourism hotels in 2013. Pregnant women typically spend around $20,000 to stay in the facility during their final months of pregnancy, and an additional month to recuperate and await their new baby's U.S. passport. Now, they admit this in other countries. Here's from a Nigerian newspaper. It says, there has been a growing trend, especially among Asian and African visitors from Hong Kong, China, South Korea, Taiwan, and Nigeria to the United States to make use of birth hotels to secure U.S. citizenship for their child and leave open the possibility of future migration by the parents to the United States. These countries know it. Americans mostly do not know it. And I'll just point out that what I read to you says Asia and Africa. It did not even address Mexico, Central America, South America, the Caribbean, and so forth. The concept, which has been falsely perpetrated on the American public, is through the 14th Amendment. And the 14th Amendment has been perverted and twisted and distorted to make the American public believe that that's what the Constitution says. Friends, that is not what the Constitution says. I want to share with you, in the little time I've got, again, it's the academic portion of today's presentation. Amendment 14 and section number 1 says, and here's the relevant provision, all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. Period. There it is. That's the basis on which people say we have no choice. If they are born here, then they are U.S. citizens. Well, I ask you, is that exactly what the amendment says? Let me read it again. All persons born or naturalized, and naturalization is a ceremony. All persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the states wherein they reside. So, I don't know if you're able to see the screens. I actually brought a PowerPoint presentation, but I think it's not going to work too well. But we've got the slide there. That's what I want to focus on. The screen, if you can see it, says number 2. The question, what does it mean to be subject to the jurisdiction thereof? Well, subject to the jurisdiction thereof means of the United States. What does it mean for someone to be born here? It's not enough. It means they also have to be subject to the jurisdiction. There is a leading case on this issue decided by the Supreme Court of the United States, and I wish to tell you that they have wrongly decided many cases based upon this. The case regards a Chinese citizen. It was in 1898. This was after the adoption of the 14th Amendment, which took place in 1868. It's a Civil War amendment. The 14th Amendment was really ratified for the purpose of giving the emancipated slaves certain civil rights in the United States. The 14th Amendment, Section 1, addresses this concept of birthright citizenship. And the issue is, are you born here? And most stop answering the question after that. Are they born here? They're citizens. Well, the amendment language does not really stop there. It says they must be born here and also subject to the jurisdiction thereof. The case in 1898, 30 years, again after the adoption of the 14th Amendment, is called Wong Kim Ark. A-R-K, just like Noah's Ark. Wong Kim Ark versus United States. It is the only Supreme Court case post-14th Amendment to directly address the issue of what it means to be subject to the jurisdiction. Wong was born in the United States. His parents were Chinese citizens, but they were permanent residents of the United States. So follow me now. Born here? Check. What about his parents? Oh, they're Chinese. But the American government has given them permission to be permanent residents of the United States. Is their child, Wong, Kim Ark, entitled to be a citizen? And the court there determined that the answer was yes. They said, yes, we believe he was born in and subject to the jurisdiction. The case spans over 80 pages. 80 pages. And they spent a majority of those pages addressing the topic, what is, it's like you have on your screen, what does it mean to be subject to the jurisdiction of? And they went into history of the Roman Empire. They went into the history primarily of England, or we are under English common law, and so forth. And one of the things that they did was they discussed a case that had been decided about 14 or 15 years earlier. There was a United States earlier Supreme Court case that involved a Native American child, a member of an Indian tribe. And the question is, the member of the Indian tribe, is he born in and subject to the jurisdiction? That case is called Elk, like the animal, E-L-K, versus Wilkins, 1884. And in that case, the United States Supreme Court said that the Indian was not a U.S. citizen because he had loyalty to an Indian tribe. And because he had loyalty to an Indian tribe, he was not subject to the jurisdiction for United States purposes. And they spent a lot of time talking about that, and they defined what subject to the jurisdiction means. They said that subject to the jurisdiction means, if you're ready for this, completely subject in their political jurisdiction and owing them direct and immediate allegiance. Let me say that again. Subject to the jurisdiction, according to the Elk case in 1884, said that subject to the jurisdiction means completely subject in their political jurisdiction and owing them direct and immediate allegiance. Now, if we were to use that holding in the Elk case, and that were the operative principle going along with where were they born, none of these anchor babies would be citizens. None of the ones who come across the southern border would be citizens. They would be born here, but they're not completely subject to the political jurisdiction. They do not owe any immediate and direct allegiance to our country. In fact, some would argue that a child is going to have a primary allegiance to the country of their parents, regardless of where they were born. And I'm going to suggest to you that the right understanding of subject to the jurisdiction of in the 14th Amendment has to do with the fact that they need to be here on purpose for the right reason. They must have submitted properly to our jurisdiction. So that's the second thing. But there's another part that no court has ever addressed, to my knowledge. I've looked, I've searched, I've never found any court that directly addresses this. And if you can see the screen, it's on the screen. It says also that if they are born here and they're subject to the jurisdiction of the United States, that they are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. Well, I'm going to suggest to you that that is an implied third requirement. It's not stated directly, it's not stated actively, but it's stated passively. They must reside in a state. Well, what does residence mean? If we have someone traveling through our great state of Tennessee from the great north down to Florida for vacation, and they stop off at the 7-Eleven, are they a resident of Tennessee? If they visit one of our restaurants or get a hotel overnight, are they a resident of Tennessee? No, residency is something greater than just a temporary presence someplace. If the founders in the drafting of the 14th Amendment would have wanted to conclude that residency was not the thing that they needed to focus on, all they needed to say was that the person needed to be born within the boundaries of the state. Wouldn't that be sufficient to say that? If they are born within the boundaries of a state, of the United States, then they are citizens. They didn't use that language. They say born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof, and if they are, then they're citizens of the United States and the state where they reside. I've never seen an argument or a case on what I call the residency clause of the 14th Amendment, Section 1. Is that not a requirement that they must reside in a state before they're entitled to citizenship? And so I would urge those that litigate in this field, I don't practice immigration law, but for those that practice immigration law, I would urge someone to raise this issue about being a resident of the state wherein they reside. Now, what's this mean for us today? Trump, of course, has issued an executive order, right? Most of you know that. You know Trump issued an executive order saying, we're not going to do that anymore. Did you know that? Raise your hand if you knew that. Oh, a lot of you did. Okay. He said, we're not going to do that anymore. Well, the question, does he have the authority to do that? Well, it's a yes and it's a no. A very important principle to understand about executive orders that very few people really have mastered. Executive orders are not called executive orders because they're issued by an executive. Executive orders only affect the executive branch. That's why they're called executive orders. So Trump has absolute authority to direct those underneath his administration, that he is the chief executive. He has absolute authority to tell people in these administrative agencies, we are not going to allow that. But does he, even if he's wanting to do the right thing, does he have to do it in the right way? In my opinion, yes, he does. And so he can instruct those in the administrative agencies not to allow that to happen in the agencies. But does he have the authority to change the law? He does not. It should be changed either by Congress or by an amendment to the Constitution, or hopefully our judges will finally start interpreting the Constitution the right way. They need to interpret the Constitution as it was originally intended. And the 14th Amendment was for the purpose of allowing citizenship to the emancipated slaves. That's its purpose. So that's my suggestion. Now, there is a residency argument that I think I would want to point out to you that would prove my case. Lawyers like to have evidence to prove their case. And rarely do you find a smoking gun, and I'm not sure that I've got a smoking gun, but I've got a gun. I'm not sure if it's smoking or not, but I've got a gun. And here's my proof that residency of a state and being subject to the jurisdiction means more than what the courts say it means now. And here are the facts. At the time of our having these United States in the 14th Amendment, at that time, as you know, we had U.S. territories. Colorado Territory, Nevada Territory, Dakota Territory, eventually, Washington, Idaho territories. They did not become citizens of the United States after the passage of the 14th Amendment. If they were born there, they weren't citizens. They were in a territory. They were within the permission of our country. These were recognized territories, but they were not given citizenship. They were given citizenship only when the territorial treaties were signed and citizenship was granted, which means that would never have had to have been done if the 14th Amendment already did it. All right? I think the 14th Amendment didn't already do it. 100 years ago, they knew that, and so they took action to give citizenship to babies born in those territories when they chose to. But I suggest that the fact that they did it later in territories by specific act shows that they know presence in the United States is not enough. Let's educate our representatives on this fact. Let's stand up for the fact that we cannot have open borders. Let's stand up for the fact that we cannot have citizenship being bought and paid for by foreign governments and by others that are hoping for a better life. I'm all for them hoping for a better life. Come here legally, Don't jump in line in front of all the other people who did come here legally and who did it the right way. So that's our short session on birthright citizenship. I do speak on these topics. I'm happy to speak on them. If you know of someone that would want to have me come, I'm happy to come. I never charge. I've done it for 25 years. I've never charged one time. I'm happy to come. If you're interested to learn and listen, I'm happy to come and speak to your group. So contact my office in Greenville if you want to, and I'll be happy to come and address some of these topics with you. Thank you for your time and attention.